Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the PE Geek Podcast. And as always, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. Now, I'm super excited because we have a very special guest today in Naomi Hartl. How are you, Naomi?
I'm doing great, thanks.
Awesome.
Excited to be here.
Yeah, where are you joining us from today?
So I'm originally from Saskatchewan, Canada, but I currently live in Hood River, Oregon. So I'm in the United States.
Yeah, so you're teaching there, or what are you currently involved in doing?
So I'm a former teacher, but now I work with Sport Time and Spark. So I am the PE development and technology specialist with Spark.
And that's
so I work on the development team.
Development,
so I work on all that kind of stuff. So working on the curriculum that we push out. I work on our webinars. I am the leader of our innovation team. So kind of our think tank of people that we want to work with and what's new in innovation and what can we push forward. And I travel and go to conferences and present on how to integrate technology into PE and just try to support teachers in ways that I wasn't supported. So it's a pretty cool job. I think I've learned more about education and myself in the year and a half that I've worked with Spark than I did as a teacher in the classroom. So it's been a pretty cool experience.
It is. I mean, if you look at the impact that you're able to have, when you remove yourself by one, you've got a far greater impact now because you get to impact teachers that then go on and impact students themselves. So I love that leveraged approach. And it's very similar to myself as well, like obviously not being in the classroom at the moment, being able to run workshops. And I get to see things that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to see. So, I really wanted to get you on the show and talk about where this all began for you. So if you can think back to when you first started teaching, what sparked the curiosity with technology?
Okay, so I always think about this too, and people always ask me these questions, and I'm like, oh, it seems like that was so long ago, when really it wasn't. So I started teaching in 2011, I believe. And I started in a school of about 2,000 students, and I went to school for high school, physical education, and my minor was science. Mm-hmm. And in my school, we didn't have a whole bunch of technology, but my basketball girls had got me onto Twitter, and I really didn't care about Twitter. And I was like, this is ridiculous. Why are you getting me on here? They're like, no, you got to check it out. So I got on, and if anybody knows me, you know that if I get into something, I'm going to put my all into it. So I was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to search for things that I'm interested in. And I started searching PhysEd. And one of the first people that I found was you, actually. You enjoy fight, which is really neat. And that kind of sparked my interest in how can I bring technology into my classroom. And one of the first things I started with, and it sounds ridiculous, but was a QR code t-shirt. Because I think I'd read one of your blog posts. And it was talking about QR codes and how you can integrate it. And I was just like, well, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a QR code on my t-shirt. I'm going to have a riddle. So it had nothing to do with PE. But I was like, this is awesome. So it's just a little gimmicky thing that I did with the kids. And then from there, it kind of just sparked into how can I actually use this in my classroom? And Joy Fight had some QR code skill posters that I started using. And then from there, it wasn't just QR codes, but I started adding different apps that I could use. And I created some scavenger hunts that you could scan the QR codes. So it was really neat. And then I'd moved to a new school. It was about a tiny little school, 93 kids, K through 12. And this school and this school division had a lot of technology, and I had a lot of access to technology. So we had 93 kids in the school, and we had about 70 devices, from computers to Chromebooks to iPads. Every teacher had an iPad. So I was really able to kind of play with different tools and figure out what could work for me. But then I was also teaching a lot of curriculums and subject areas. So I had a lot of split classes. I was teaching grades 3 through 12 physical education. I was teaching math 9 and math 10. I had career guidance 6, 7, 8, and 9, and health 6, 7, 8, and 9. And at one point, I was teaching cooking and sewing. So I had a lot of curriculum that I was looking at. So it was a little overwhelming, especially being in my second year of teaching. And I was like, okay, so how can I utilize technology to make my life a little bit easier, to kind of streamline my work, put me in places that I couldn't be in before, so kind of clone myself and support my kids in the best way that I can with the tools that I had, because I had a few tools that I could use. So I guess your question was where did I start with things? And I guess that's kind of how I got into it. Was really, I was struggling with portions of my teaching and kind of keeping up and trying to survive, and technology supported me in that process.
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar to my own story. So there's a lot to be said about small schools and having a bit of freedom. And I mean, you mentioned that you're working in different curriculum areas. It's very similar to me. Like PhysEd teacher with an IT minor, but I've taught maths, I've taught geography because of a small school need to find people who can take these things. And I was the same, like, how can I use the thing that I know how to do well, which was tech, and use it to support me in these other areas that I wasn't as confident in. So very similar stories here. And I mean, what do you notice about schools and the take up of technology? Is there any patterns about school sizes, or have you noticed that schools who more readily do it are thinking differently, or is it monetary reasons? Like what are some things that you've observed across the time that you've been helping teachers?
That's an interesting question. You know what? I don't know if there's really been much of a pattern in regards to, well, I guess what I've seen, it really, I think, comes down to the people that are part of the building.
For sure.
And it's really about the people that kind of see things in a new light and say, hey, we can utilize this. We can make this work if we only have these tools. Because I know when I go out and I do my workshops, because I can do my 6-hour my day workshops, and I get to visit a bunch of different schools, and lots of times it comes down to we don't have access to that. We teach outside. We don't have Wi-Fi. It's like, okay, that's true. But there are tools that you can use to support you. So a lot of it is the thinking that teachers have.
Completely.
Maybe it's a little bit of fear about the unknown and getting out of the comfort zone and feeling, our kids are on their devices all the time. Why would I want to support that? My counter to that is, you're right, they are on their devices all the time, but how can we show them how to use it to be lifelong learners, but also lifelong movers? Mm-hmm. How can we show them that technology isn't there just to move your thumbs, but to actually move your body? So, yeah, I don't know that I didn't really answer your question, but I think it's about the thinking that people have and the support that the administrators have when it comes to technology. And when it comes to technology in PE, that's a tough one too, because lots of people don't think technology is made for PE. When I tell people that when I was teaching and I used technology in my phys ed classes, I would get raised eyebrows or weird looks like, what? Why would you be using, how would you use that? Like, what does that look like? And then I would explain what that looked like, video analysis or different ways that I can help station work or, different things like that. And then they kind of, oh, okay, I guess it does work. And it's like learning happens in PE, and this is how learning happens. This is how I support that. Yeah, I don't know. It's a lot about thinking, I think.
It's stereotypes too. So, I mean, like you've said, they've changed a lot in, all the years that I've been involved in running workshops. So back in 2008, it was a really hard fight to run presentations on tech and phys ed, but you have to show people on this long-term journey of, skilling them up and so on. But I was going to say the only real thing I've noticed from, 30 plus countries, everyone's got similar stories. It's, there's nowhere where it's unique. I think, teachers are doing the best they can in most situations. We got struggles with resources, but the only real common ground I see is that the schools that use it well have good teaching at the heart of it. And I think you've basically pointed that out. Like that's the only thing that I've seen that is the indicator. I've worked in schools where the resources are boundless. They've got endless resources and capacity to purchase things, but bad practice, they're not using them really well. They might have a class set of iPads just sitting in the corner.
Right.
But you go to a school like my school, and we only had one or two. But the good teaching practice wrapped around it meant that they got used really well. So I think that's the only thing that I've noticed. It's heartening. It's good to know that we can have an impact in helping people think about that and get some value. So I love the work that you're doing. So like moving into that, like tech's been great for me too. I'm really fond of it as we all know, but there have been moments where things haven't gone to plan as I might have liked. So I've, got quite excited about a tool and gone and introduced it. What about you? Have you ever done something and it just hasn't worked out quite so well?
Too many things. I don't know if I can think of a specific situation, because lots of time. So how it would always work. I guess I can talk about it in my classroom and then what I'm doing now too. But it was always, okay, kids, all right. Usually it would be, okay, I learned this new thing on Twitter the other night, and the kids were kind of like, oh, okay, Miss Hartl, now what did you learn? What are you going to teach us? And it was a big running joke, but I think they respected me for trying new things and being vulnerable. So there would be times where I'm like, all right, bear with me. This may or may not work. And so it was kind of prepping the kids and being like, okay, if it doesn't work, we're going to talk about it. We're going to reflect. We're going to go back and we're going to try again. So I think it kind of built that up for the kids too. We can make mistakes. It's going to be okay. So there's tons of things. I mean, there'd be QR codes, or I remember one time I set up a QR code scavenger hunt and I didn't put the codes in the right order. And I think I set it up wrong. So the kids were going in anyways. Yeah, it was a big, it was awful and it didn't work. And the kids came back and I was like, they're like, that didn't work very well. I was like, nope. I was like, but were you moving? They're like, yeah. I was like, well, I guess we got you moving. We got your heart rate up. That's a start. So I was like, next time we'll try and get the learning happening with it. But that's one example in my classroom. I mean, countless times I'll go to conferences and the Wi-Fi won't be working, or I can't connect, or I'm trying to mirror something onto my screen and it's blocking my AirPlay. So I'd be very frustrated and I get kind of excited, and then I'd be like, okay, Naomi, just put a personal hotspot on your phone. You're good to go. It's all right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so as I've gone through, I think handling those things, I've gotten a lot better at, like, don't panic. This is what you're going to do. This is what happens. And sometimes you just go to everybody and be like, okay, so when technology fails on you, you need to have a plan B, a plan C, a plan D to make sure that you're ready in case that does happen. Yeah. And if all else fails and technology is not working, okay, I hate to say go old school. I don't want to say it like that, but then take the technology out and don't use it and just teach what you want to teach. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's been many times that it just has not worked.
Yeah, I mean, I think you show a really good, you model to the students really well when you are prepared to put yourself out there and not potentially fail, but you're showing that you're learning as well. And that's what we want students to be doing as well. Like, be prepared to fail to some extent and learn from that. And I think that is modeling what we want them to do. And I think we sort of probably undervalue what that might show a student what they need to be doing as well. So I think there's a massive reason why we should try new things. But it's unfortunate that lots of people don't think that.
Right. They see the fails and they say, I'm not doing that.
Exactly.
That kind of scared me away. And it's like, no, there's some really good things that are happening that you could do. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
So what have been the successes then? So you're looking back and there's been some really popular resources or things that you've done that you've just thought absolutely. I know you mentioned the QR code skill posters early on. They're probably one of the best things that's ever happened for me too. But yeah, I mean, what are some things that you've really enjoyed or tools that you use now that you just couldn't imagine not having access to?
Okay, so the ones that I always use, and for me, this is more of a management and organization thing. When I was teaching in my gym, it was a smaller, so I'm thinking of the last school that I was teaching at, my small school. So I had a tiny little gym, but I had a stage. And on that stage, we had a big projector screen built kind of into the wall. We had like a computer area and the stereo system and all that kind of stuff. So I had a neat little setup. But I would always hook up my computer and then I would do the mirroring. So I hated being basically tethered to the computer or connected to the computer with a cord. It drove me crazy. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I started using was AirServer. And I use that for absolutely anything. I could walk around the gym. I could, with being on Wi-Fi, I wasn't connected. Or I was connected, but I wasn't connected to the computer. So that was one of the things that I pretty much use for everything. In all my workshops, when I was teaching, it's just great to be able to film a kid doing something and say, hey, check out what we just did here. And I could pop it up on the screen, or I could walk around and be evaluating them and then pop something up on the screen so they could see it, or pop my lesson notes up or different things like that. So that's one of the big things that I use. And I always say AirServer because that's the one that I started with. That's one that kind of has always worked for me. There's Reflector 2, there's Mirroring 360. So there's a ton of different ones that can do the mirroring aspect of it too. And I know some people use Apple TV, Chromecast. Like I said, there's a ton. So sure. People just really have to research and find out what works best for them. But that was a good one. BAM video delay. Any type of video analysis that you can use, or even just video where kids can see themselves, I find is really powerful. And that was kind of a big aha moment for students. I remember, I think we were doing badminton, and I was talking about with one of my high school students. And he was one that was butted heads with me a little bit on things, didn't want to listen to me, or didn't think I knew what I was talking about, maybe because I was a young female teacher, just kind of out of school. And when I showed him what I was talking about and showed him what he looked like, he couldn't really deny it. You know, it's like, I was doing it. It's like, no, look, I'm really telling you the truth. I'm here to support you. So that video piece was really powerful. And then having students analyze themselves and watch themselves. So using a Hudl technique was a good one that we used, BAM video delay, where they can see that instant feedback. So there's a ton of ones. And I wish when I was teaching, I could have used Plickers, because I think that would have been a really good one for teaching. But I didn't hear about that one till after I was out of the classroom.
Yeah,
those are
there's some amazing tools, isn't there?
ones. There's so many things. So,
and the important thing is that, you know, when I run the workshops that we do, it's not about trying to do all of these things. You know, anyone who's listening, you want to find that one or two things that give value, add to your program, help you do something that you couldn't do before.
Right, exactly.
That's what tech does for us. It assists us and augments a result for us, and lots of these things do that. I love the idea of video helping show, you know, things that kids can't see for themselves. But I remember how motivational video was for me. Like, not even looking at it from a performance analysis perspective, but just seeing myself and thinking, oh, is that me? Like, that's what I look like when I run? I need to go and run more. It was motivation.
I know that. I thought the same thing. I saw myself too. I was like, what?
I think we forget sometimes that even if it's just for that purpose, there's a lot to be said about how motivating that is for activity.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us on the PE Geek podcast. Where can people find out more about you and the things that you're doing?
There are a ton of different places. I always tell people, if you need to get a hold of me, there's no excuse. Or if you can't get a hold of me, there's no excuse, because there's so many different places. So you can find me on Twitter at Miss Hartl. It's MISSHARTL. You can find me on Voxer, Miss Hartl, same thing. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, Snapchat, so many different places. My email, naomi.hartl@sparkpe.org. That's a great place to find me as well. Webinars. We do our webinars with Spark. You can find me there. PhysEd, we blog. We're trying to blog a little bit more, the PhysEd Summit, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, there's really no place that you can't find me if you need to find me.
Yeah, I love
the big ones. If you need to get a hold of me quickly, Twitter, social media, anything social media. That's the stuff right away when I wake up, grab my phone. That's what I look at first. Usually I tell people social media is the first thing I look at. Email is the second thing I look at. So if you really need to get a hold of me, that's the way to do it.
Awesome. I love that. I love what you said. What was it? There's no excuse for not being able to get in touch with you?
Right.
Yeah,
yep.
there really isn't these days, is there? Like, if you want to communicate with someone, there's multiple ways to do it. So thanks again for coming on today's episode.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. For everyone listening, you can get a full episode transcript word for word over at thepegeek.com/63, and you can get a list of all the show notes too. So all the apps and things that Naomi has mentioned, you'll be able to find links to those. But thanks, and we'll speak soon.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thanks, everybody.